Hi everyone, welcome to our second Brown Bag Science Talk. Today we're going to be hearing from Julio Campis Díaz about his internship with Mosaics in Science. So, some notes for this discussion. This is going to be a very casual conversation where everyone is welcome to share all ideas and experience after Julio gives his presentation. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can use the raise your hand feature so that we can notice that you have a question. Until we call upon you, please keep your mic muted so you avoid disruptions. And you're welcome to utilize the chat box feature at any time throughout the presentation, and we'll get to your questions after Julio is done speaking. And we'll be recording this event and posting it on the SIP YouTube for people to access later and rewatch again if you want to see this presentation. So without further ado, we're going to hand it over to Julio. He was a Mosaics and Science alumnus who worked in Yosemite National Park in California. So go ahead, Julio.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Please let me know once you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, let me just enter full screen. Okay, well, first off, thank you so much, SIP Scientific Spark, for giving me this opportunity. Super excited, super nervous, but this is a very amazing experience for me, and I'm happy to talk about it. Just to give an idea of what it is to be a scientist in parks, what does it mean, and why is it so important? So starting off, uh, the title of my presentation is "A Summer of Owls and Granite," because that's what I saw, a lot of owls and a lot of granite. Um, but first off, who am I? My name is Julio Campis Díaz, born and raised in Puerto Rico, a tropical island in the Caribbean. So I don't live in the contiguous United States of America. I live in a very small island based off in the Caribbean. If you just look at the map, you cannot see it. So we do have to do a little zoom. Um, but we're a very rich island in culture and history, and I'm very proud of that about that. So anywhere I go, be it California, be it wherever, I like to bring that with me, so people know the the people of Puerto Rico, how happy we are, and what we have to offer. So yeah, I'm doing a bachelor's degree. Or my bad, I graduated from my bachelor's degree in integrative biology at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, and that was this past summer. And in August, I actually started my master's degree in environmental sciences. So I'm very excited about all of that. Thanks to my bachelor's degree, I, I had a lot of great experiences that definitely cemented my passion for wildlife and for national parks. And so it's brought me to where I am right now. And I'm very passionate about wildlife conservation, research, and education. And national parks are an amazing place to explore all three of these topics and to combine them. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that. And a little fun fact, I have two pet pigs, a cat and a pig, which you can see in the picture in the top right corner. I love them very much. The cat is named Simba, yes, after Lion King, and the pig is called Kiwi, like the fruit. And yes, I do feed him kiwis. So other than that, I have visited 7 national parks, and I'm so crazy to keep on exploring. The first national park I visited was Rocky Mountains, which is the top left corner. Um, Great Smoky Mountains, Yosemite National Park, Everglades, Biscayne, Olympic, and Crater Lake. And actually, Olympic and Crater was 2 weeks ago, so fresh memories. And I don't know if you guys can see my camera while seeing the presentation, but I also have a Junior Ranger. Oh, I think it's getting blurred. I can show it later, but I have a Junior Ranger vest with all my patches. So that's something I'm very proud of to collect. Now, going into what actually I did during my internship, I was a scientist in parks through the Mosaics in Science Diversity Internship Program. And this program is highly recommended. This program has given me one of the best memories and most complete experiences in my life. And so, and National Park Service needs partners to employ interns in different positions in different parks. And so Environment for the Americas is one of those partners. It is through Environment for the Americas that this Mosaics in Science Diversity internship is completed. And so EFTA, which stands for Environment for the Americas, hires intentionally underrepresented minorities and youth, such as myself, a Latino, Hispanic Latino, and they place them in different national parks So they can be positions all the way from California in my case, but also North Carolina, Florida, all the way to even Alaska and Pacific Islands such as Guam. So this is a very, very, very um, well, just a highly experienced internship. And so it has a very great devoted team of professionals, including Dr. Shelda Diaz. She's also Puerto Rican. And if it wasn't because of her, I probably wouldn't have found out of this internship. And she's the one who prepared me to actually excel in my interview and whatnot. So thank you, Dr. Shelda, and the amazing team that is working so hard at Environment for the Americas. And you can visit their website, mosaicsinscience.org, Environment for the Americas, to learn more information about them. Now, going into my actual internship, I was a biology assistant in the Great Gray Owl Project. And this was, again, through the Mosaics in Science Diversity internship. I spent 10 weeks in Yosemite National Park. So it was a summer internship going from May into late July. And this position was solely based on me learning about biologist experiences, biology jobs. And so in my career, in my summer, I was supporting biologists in researching great gray owls in the park through habitat assessment. The lower corner with the owl, that's a great gray owl. It is an amazing, amazing avian creature. I mean, it's actually the longest bird in the world from the top of its head to the tip of its tail. And it's also highly endangered. So there are less than 200 individuals in the whole Sierra Nevada. And so not only the park, but California Fish and Wildlife are really trying their best for conservation and research and to see how we can protect the owls and increase those numbers in wildlife settings. And so during my project, I was part of the terrestrial wildlife biodiversity program of resources management and science. And you can see some pictures of me using some of the radio telemetry equipment to track the owl, using some fake mice to lure it sometimes. And of course, the Yosemite Falls, which has nothing to do with the owl itself, but it's just a beautiful picture. Going into the next slide, what were my responsibilities? So most of my time was actually spent in the field doing field work. And what would this consist of? Well, two parts. First off, I would use radio telemetry equipment like the picture I showed before. And that was helpful in tracking the owl and finding it. So we had 3 different owls within the park. I would one day yes, one day no, drive to them to find them. And once I would find them, this is where the hard part or the majority or the most important part comes in, because I would complete vegetation protocols. And what were these vegetation protocols? Were using all the equipment in the lower left, range finders, DBH tape, and other equipment. We would get a good image of what the vegetation was around where the owl was perched. And for example, we would tell, oh, the owl was perched on this tree. We would make a quadrant around it, and we would take different percentages of what vegetation was in that quadrant. For example, 25% fern, 50% grasses, and 25% understory vegetation. And this is very useful because scientists and biologists within the park use this information to have an idea of what vegetation the owl is using for foraging, for nesting. And this can be very helpful because when we're doing conservation management and taking decisions, we can tell, well, we know it likes this type of vegetation. Well, we can improve its habitat by planting this type of vegetation. Or even more, a threat for these birds was vehicle collisions. So for example, we can remove that vegetation which it prefers from roads to avoid vehicle collisions. And that's part of what this work was for. And of course, it would also include some office work such as data entry and blog writing. Going into my blogs, a big part of the internship is to write blogs. So I had to write 6 blogs during my internship. You can write more if you want. And they were just telling, different experiences of what you were learning, how you were fitting into the park. For example, one of my favorite was actually the interview with Sarah Stock, Terrestrial Wildlife Branch Lead for Yosemite National Park. And it was just getting into the idea of what it is to be a wildlife branch lead, the responsibilities. And she was in it for 20 years, if not more. So she had great information and knowledge that she passed on to me. And hopefully through this blog, to other students and biologists working in national parks. Also, another big part of the internship and being in the terrestrial wildlife branch was that other than my owl work, I was able to shadow other park biologists and get amazing experiences. For example, I went bat banding with the U.S. Geological Survey. They were looking for white nose syndrome, which is a virus, if I'm not correct. I think it's a fungi actually, but nonetheless, it was an amazing experience just seeing bats up close. I mean, look at that picture; they're huge. Bird banding was incredible. We worked with woodpeckers, sparrows, and other birds. And we also got the opportunity to visit pond turtle telemetry, which is honestly the best part is once they tag all the turtles, they release it into the pond. But they got to make it fun. So they do a little race to see which turtle makes it faster to the pond. And that was very fun, even though my turtle was the slowest. Uh, Now, of course, I cannot leave without saying some wildlife of Yosemite National Park. You can see a first picture of a great gray owl. That was a male. Males are shorter than or smaller than females, but look, he's so beautiful. Spotted owls, we also did some work with them. Hummingbirds, black bears, deers. So excited to see a black bear. I mean, we don't have big mammals in Puerto Rico, so for the first time seeing animals like deers and black bears, it might be like a common thing for someone else, but from a person like me coming from an island, this blew my mind, and especially up that close. Note, I took that picture with binoculars, so I wasn't that close, and I wouldn't want to be that close, but it was still spectacular to see such great wildlife. Also, Yosemite is known for like its geological treasures. It has amazing mountains like El Capitan, which if you like rock climbing, El Capitan. Yosemite Falls, which looks, I mean, that picture looks fake. How can you take a picture that good? And it also has sequoias, which biggest tree in the world. I mean, I'll say nothing more. Also, amazing landscapes in Yosemite National Park, especially in the high country. Witnessed some wildfire, yeah, some fires. They were contained. You can see Half Dome in the back. Top of Half Dome, one of the greatest experiences, and honestly, most scary was actually climbing Half Dome. Yeah, that was something I will never forget, and that's the top of Half Dome, and that's me with my arms spread. I definitely did not show this picture to my mom because she would not let me travel anymore. Um, Now I do want to say after the internship, so a big part of the Mosaics in Science internship is that once you're or if your internship ends in summer, as in my position, as in my case, well then they'll fly you out to Washington D.C. If your position doesn't end till late October, then you'll just fly out back to your park after you're done with this workshop. But they fly us out to Washington D.C. to have a career and leadership workshop, which is honestly so incredible and so enriching and like experiences, professional development, truly amazing. Uh, One of the best parts is that you get to meet the director of National Park Service, Charles F. Chuck Sams, which is on the lower picture. An amazing guy, and so wanted to have met him honestly because he's someone that we want to know. Use I forgot the word when you have someone up there, but you guys get me. We also did a poster presentation on the work that you did on your internship. So I presented my accomplishments, which I'll get a little bit more into later. And one of the best parts is that you also get to meet all the amazing interns from Mosaics and Science interns and other internship that EFTA offers. But yeah, this career leadership workshop is a big part of the internship and honestly very enriching. Going into my internship accomplishments, what was I able to do? Well, in the span of 8 weeks, because of training and whatnot, I completed 202 vegetation plots, which took a lot of time. And I'm happy because those are 202 vegetation plots that I know are going for scientific knowledge, for conservation management, and that are helping our biologists in taking better decisions into conserving not only our owls but other organisms in the park. I established great networking with park biologists that I still have contact with today. I was able to acquire a public land corps hiring authority, or called a PLC, and like 2 or 3 months after after my internship was done, I was able to present at the Geological Society of America Connects, and right there we have Whitney and Elise. They're other two Mosaics and Science interns, and just seeing them like months after in Pittsburgh, it was just amazing to share with them. So I do want to share that it wasn't all flowers and owls and bears. It wasn't everything so easy. There were definitely some challenges along the internship. You know, this was the furthest away I've ever been from home. So you know, getting I got sick from not being on my home. That's something people can relate to, and that was a challenge for me. Also, by the end, I wasn't sure if my research was scientific enough because other internship positions, they're not all related to owls. There can be hydrologists, paleontologists, water chemistry, and others. And so some of them were actually doing data analysis. I was just collecting the data. So by the end, I wasn't sure if my poster was scientific enough. After a call or two with Shilda, she made me feel better about myself, but that definitely was a challenge. Also, completing a significant amount of vegetation plots in such a short span of time. Although the internship lasts 10 weeks, we have 2 weeks of training, just getting used to know there. The last week was doing my poster. So it wasn't 10 weeks of vegetation plots. It was more like 7 and 8. And just completing a good amount of significant vegetation plots was very hard. Some days I would work 8 hours, 10 hours. And some days it'll be hot, some days it'll be cold. So being out there in the field collecting these data in just a short amount of time was definitely difficult for me. And also, I was very nervous for my poster presentation. Most people tell me, "Oh, Julio, how can that be? You're such a social person." Yeah, but it still gets me pretty nervous, especially with that other challenge that I mentioned about my research not being scientific enough. But honestly, nothing to be so nervous about. Uh, it was a very enriching experience, and if I could do it all over again, I would definitely do it. And so, some advice I do want to give as an intern. So before you apply, do read intern requirements and try to fit your resume to those needs. You know, you never use your same resume for two different jobs. Always try to edit them to make them fit those needs, and of course, stand out from everyone else applying. Especially if you have the skills they're looking for. Prepare for your interview. Research the department, the people that are going to interview you. If you have the opportunity to research about them, that would be amazing, especially about their achievements. Ask questions as in expectations. Never leave an interview without asking a question, because that only tells them that maybe you're not that motivated, maybe you're not that interested. And so just make sure that they see you as the most interested applicant. And yeah, show that you're the most interested and qualified person for the job. Also, I know our parents teach us to be humble, but sometimes you don't have to be that humble. Show off what you accomplished, be proud of it. When you go out there, yeah, I've done this, I've learned this, I've accomplished this, and show off. Of course, don't be bragging about it so much, but definitely don't be shy about it, because that's what they want to hear. They want to hear what you've accomplished and what you can bring to the table. And finally, life is about taking risk. Leave your comfort zone and explore new places and opportunities. You know, some people we have an island syndrome where we come from such a small island. We don't want to leave, and when we leave, we're in a big continent like the USA or America, and we feel like this is not the spot for us. And that's something I definitely experienced. But after that internship, I noticed that the things you learn, you become a different person. And if it weren't for these experiences, well, you just got to leave some room for growth. And you know, just from the pictures, you guys can tell this was an amazing opportunity, experience. And imagine if I simply had not taken this opportunity and would not have applied. That would have been a bummer. Also, would not have been here. So do take those chances. And never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Med. Thank you very much for your attention. And I'm ready to take some questions now.
Thank you so much, Julio, for that really informative presentation. If anybody has any questions, feel free to use the raise your hand feature, or you can drop those in the chat. For now, I'm going to drop some links to the Mosaics in Science and Scientists in Park websites that Julio mentioned earlier in his presentation. So does anybody have any questions?
Hello, I do, but I can't find the raise the hand button, so.
Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, um, um, thanks, Julio. That was a great presentation. It sounds like you had a really good time. What are you doing now? That's sort of my main question.
Yeah, definitely. So right now I'm doing a master's degree in environmental sciences in the University of Puerto Rico, and I didn't go too into it too in depth into it, but I'm actually focusing my research now in freshwater ecology. So when I did this internship, I was kind of exploring what was the field of ecology I wanted to concentrate in. And although I had the best time with owls, in Puerto Rico, the opportunity came up with freshwater ecology, especially freshwater shrimps. And that's something I'm dedicating my research to now. I'm loving it. So I probably will be a freshwater ecologist for the rest of my life. And I'm excited to keep on learning about that. But yes, in shorts, I'm doing freshwater ecology and a master's in environmental sciences in Puerto Rico.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Thank you.
I notice Adam has a question. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Adam, we can hear you.
Yes.
All right. First of all, I want to say thank you, Julio. That was a great presentation. I appreciate you sharing with us. My question is, how did how do you think things you learned in undergraduate school, like academics and extracurriculars, helped you prepare for this internship opportunity?
Of course. Thank you very much for that question, Adam. I think every undergraduate in every other college, every other state has a very unique perspective on life, on what they've learned, of what they've experienced. So I think the most important thing is when you go to this internship, to this job opportunities, be it whatever it be, I think it's important that you bring that unique perspective of yours. You know, being from Puerto Rico, I have a very different perspective on nature, than other people from other places, and so I wasn't afraid of bringing that with me. Like I said, I bring my culture, my history, and that all goes into university and college experiences as well. So don't be afraid to bring everything that you've learned, and not only in college but also in your personal life. Don't be afraid to bring that in, because that really brings a unique perspective into the job. And maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe my college preparation wasn't good enough for this internship, for this job position. Nah, never doubt yourself like that. Just bring whatever you have. Don't be shy. Bring whatever ideas you have that you have learned during your college experiences, and definitely try to apply them, because that's what I did. And most of the feedback that I got from the wildlife team was that they were great ideas and that we wanted to incorporate them in our conservation practices or whatnot. So yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, Adam. Thank you.
I'm gonna read a question we have in the chat from Christina. They say, great presentation. Did you need to get any special training before working with bats? And what strategies did you use to find great gray owls in the park?
Great. Great question. Thank you, Christina. Um, so first one, something that I want to clear of these internships is that you do not need prior experience, or at least not always. Most of these internships, the reality is that they are trying to prepare you. They are trying to give you an experience that you have not had, or that you have had in a very small amount. So when I applied, I was honest. I told them that I barely had experience with radio telemetry tracking, but that I did have experiences in other stuff. Like I worked a little bit with vegetation. I worked with freshwater animals in Puerto Rico. And that's something they enjoyed because although it was not directly correlated, it was still experience that I could bring to the table and that I could still use in the park. So no prior experience. Definitely some positions do have more difficult responsibilities and they may need prior experience, but at least in the one that I had, no prior experience needed. And most of the training with radio telemetry was done in the park with the park biologist. And the second question was, how do I find the owls in the park, I believe? So the parks, the owls were actually already tagged by park biologists. So they already tagged. I'm gonna actually put an image. Um, okay. If you look at the owl, you can see, it has its feathers, but if you look at its back, it actually has this like a small string, maybe a feather, not a feather. That's actually an antenna. So these owls were captured about a year prior to my arrival, and they were already tagged with antennas. So all I had to do was drive to an area that we already know they like to spend time with, and then I will use the radio telemetry to find them. So it was still pretty hard, but we already knew a specific part in the park where they were, so it wasn't as difficult. Um, but just to answer your question, the park biologists, what they do to actually find the owls is that they go around the whole park. This is a very big park, and they use recordings of the owl to call it. And if the owl was nearby, it could call back, and that way they can identify, oh, we have an owl in this part of the park. And if they didn't hear anything, well, maybe the owl didn't respond, but in most cases, there was not a great gray owl in that part of the park. I do want to clarify, do not play recordings to great gray owls. They are endangered organisms, and it is federal. It is illegal to put recordings to endangered avian species. But yes, that is how they did it. If I didn't quite answer your question, you can ask again, Christina.
Christina in the chat says, so cool. Thanks. We have 2 more minutes left. Oh, we have one more question, and I think we'll have to call it the end after this. But Abel is saying, did you spend most of your time outside doing research and shadowing, or mostly inside with data analysis?
Mostly outside. Yes, I would say, for example, I would work on Monday through Friday. Just one day was office work doing data entry, and the other days would be spent outside in the field work, either doing tracking of owls or doing vegetation plots, which one vegetation plot could take around 20 minutes, and I did 202, so it did take a lot of time.
Thank you. And Abel replies saying, that's awesome. Can we all give a round of applause for Julio, whether using virtual features or clapping? Julio, that was a very great presentation. Thank you so much for speaking and sharing your experience with the SIP program and the research that you were conducting during this time. At this time, it is 3:30, so we're going to wrap up the presentation. And again, thank you everyone who joined. And please remember that if you are an SIP intern or alum, reach out to SIP engagement at esa.org if you're interested in hosting your own brown bag talk, just like Julio did today. Thank you all for coming, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.